Alrighty, so I was listening to this podcast segment here from Sae Bae's podcast the other day at work, and I thought it was a pretty good springboard, I guess I could say, for discussion. They made a lot of good points. I feel like they were wrong in a lot of the points they made. I thought they were right in a lot of the points they made, and figured it'd be fun to do a little response to it. I guess I need to have my headset on first.
Jagex should increase the enhanced weapon seeds drop rate from 1 in 400 to 1 in 300, matching the chance of obtaining 6 armor seeds.
So I don't think we should change it to 1 in 300. If we want to make the Bofa easier to get, I don't think we should adjust Corrupted Gauntlets drop rate specifically. I do think that it is a little weird that you can get 6 armor seeds and still not have your Bofa on rate, but the argument then is, what happens when you run out of crystal shards with your crystal armor? You will be using your Bofa for a long time. These spare armor seeds are going to help you supply those crystal shards for the rest of your journey.
I've always been somebody that's advocated for just making...
Although the crystal shard increased drops that they did a while back, that does help a lot. You don't need that nearly as much now, so...
The enhanced grind slightly more bearable.
You don't need to make a grind more bearable. You just need to make a grind not necessary. So, Weave here already has it. He knows. You see this background here? This is the Tormented Demon dungeon. I don't remember what it's called. This is where the Gathixian Cache. This is where you want to be if you don't want to get your Bofa. You don't want to grind out CG? Go here.
To some. And I do think it just aligns perfectly. The fact that you need 6 armor seeds, they're 1 in 50 each. That's 300. Why isn't the enhanced? Like, why can't that just align? I feel like for those people, like the guy, what was his name? 7. He went like 3,900 CG without a crystal. Like, holy hell. I guess that would still be like 2,900 if the rates were this. But I mean, at least you're not having to do an extra 1,000.
Yeah, and I mean, this argument can be made for anything. I went 9,000 Lizardman Shamans without getting my Dragon Warhammer. It was like over 3x the drop rate. That doesn't mean the Dragon Warhammer should go from 1 in 3,000 to 1 in 2,000 so that I end up killing 7,000 instead of 9,000, right? Like, yeah, did it suck? Of course it sucked. But, like, that's just how it goes. You get spooned, you go dry. Hey, that's RuneScape.
For those that are just horribly unlucky.
I hard agree. I feel like I have pretty hot takes when it comes to drop rates in RuneScape and how drop should be handled. Honestly, I don't think anything, I think you've mentioned it before, Sader, on one of your rambles probably, but there should, for any essential piece of content for PVM, I don't think it should be exuberant, like in terms of like the hours invested to actually be able to get that. Like, yes, RuneScape is totally about grinding and, you know, getting your long-term goals completed, but I'm talking like the people, like we shouldn't have the crazy outliers. Like pity is like a...
Really quick, I want to cut in. I agree that if we're going... So, I don't agree. Sorry, that was bad. If we want to remove outliers, we should remove outliers. That doesn't mean we just take this bit... We don't take the dry away. We don't just do that. If we're taking the dry away, we're taking the spoon away too. You don't get to have no dry and go spoon. So, if we want to move forward with this change, everything becomes like Vestiges and Desert Treasure 2. We no longer have people getting a Twisted Bow on 1 KC. They get a Twisted String on 300 KC. They get a Twisted Top Half at 600 KC. And then they get a Twisted Bottom Half at 900 KC. And you combine those to make your Twisted Bow. This is why I don't like removing outliers, specifically. Because you just make the game so formulaic. Like, what I just described is a single-player game. It's not RuneScape. That's not what RuneScape is about. RuneScape is about killing a boss over and over again, perfecting that content to the point that you can get it dropped very, very quickly. Low drop rates exist because it makes the game more enjoyable. This is an Iron Man problem. I'm not talking about like mains here. Like if you're a main and you're trying to make money, it's a lot different, right? Because like you get bored at Chambers, go do Toa, and then you can still sell stuff and buy your TiVo. But whenever it comes to Iron Man specifically, the best feeling in the world, as far as me, like even better than getting my Inferno Cape, was getting my Dragon Warhammer. Because I went so dry, it made it feel that much better when I got it. And I don't think we should be removing that from the game because people marry themselves to CG for some reason.
Really controversial thing, but like I'm like, I don't know if it's a bad thing though.
I'm sure it's a good thing to you. It's not a good thing to people who have played this game for a very long time. People who love the grind that RuneScape is. Your change is not for them. It's just not.
Like getting pities, like just don't make the pity like small. Like make it like, okay, I know if I keep grinding, I'm gonna get it eventually.
And you will. It doesn't matter if we have pity. It doesn't matter if we don't have pity. You play the game, you will get the item. You kill the boss enough times, you will get the drop. That will happen.
Not like this unknown variable that can make you lose your mind or...
Well, then play stuff like Fallout and Skyrim. Don't play RuneScape. Don't play MMOs. Don't play games with drop rates.
Block you out.
Or make you quit the game, ultimately. I mean, it's
exactly.
Jagex.
Genuine skill issue if you quit the game over BOFA.
Is incentive to not make it so extreme.
You guys have heard me in the chat talking about this. Like, I do group Ironman with my brother, and...
That's what you want to do if you don't like drop rates in RuneScape, by the way. You play a group iron.
You know, in this day and age, I think the BOFA is not entirely completely necessary to...
Which is true. Mike's absolutely cooking here. But BOFA is not only not necessary, if you're going to marry yourself to CG, specifically to get the BOFA to make other grinds easier, you're actually making your account worse. As far as time investment goes, I should say. Because if you want to get a BOFA, or sorry, if the BOFA is a tool to get a twisted bow. That's what everybody knows it. You know it, I know it, we all know it. So what we need to do then is look to solve this problem of people quitting the game at CG. We need to have alternatives to the BOFA, like a scorching bow, for example, or a blowpipe, or an atlatl, or an Eye of Ayak. Any of these can be obtained before CG, and you can use it to... Ayak, you could use at the toe until you get Shadow. Even if you have a rune crossbow, like, you go to chambers, your solo chambers, group chambers, whatever, you're going to tell me a Tunic and Shadow, rune crossbow, and whip is not good enough to do chambers in? Is not good enough to farm chambers? Let's ignore that. You don't have a mega rare. You have an Eye of Ayak, a Scorching Bow, and an Abyssal Whip. You can't do chambers in that. It's not... You can't effectively farm a Twisted Bow with that gear. Like, I'm dog shit at chambers. I'm going to be honest. I cannot do solo chambers for the life of me, and even I can farm out a Twisted Bow in that gear very easily.
Do a lot of stuff, but it doesn't matter to my brother. He has got that in his head, and he's done 1200 CG.
And I would just like to say, it's really, really bad that people marry themselves to CG, and they get this idea like, oh, I've done 1200 CG, I just have to do CG. No, you don't. You really, really don't. And I don't think we should be making an enhanced weapon seed more common because people are too... They don't have either the game knowledge or the self-control to just get the weaker item. The slightly weaker item at that. Like the Scorching Bow and Amethyst Arrows is not that much worse than a BOFA, really. Like, especially if you're doing like BOFA blowpipe chambers, like, it's great.
And he's like basically like done. He did, I think, 1,000, and then he came back and did 200 at some point, but he's not played very much in the past 2 years. And it's just like, I text him, I was like, hey, you know, you can do something else in the game. Like, I'm doing sailing. And he's like, I just feel like like if I log in, I just feel like I should be doing Corrupted Gauntlet.
And it sucks that he feels that way. Genuinely, it does. But why should the game be changed because your brother can't settle with a Scorching? You know, like...
And my opinion is, I don't actually think it should be dropped from like 1 in 400 to 1 in 300.
I'm glad you think that.
But maybe just do some sort of dry protection, something that maybe kind of almost makes sense with the lore. You could say like, oh, if you give 10,000 crystal shards, we'll upgrade your weapon seed to an enhanced weapon seed. Something like...
If we want to do a dry protection, unlike the enhanced, I don't think your first enhanced should be dry protected. I think your second enhanced should be an permanently untradeable dry protected, because I do think it's a little ridiculous going and getting a sail door when you already have a BOFA, whenever, like, there's no reason to go for a sail door realistically, because you just get Nox Alley, use that to scythe. But, if we're going to be changing the method of getting the BOFA, you should not have, it should, instead of being Gauntlet, Corrupted Gauntlet, there should be like a third tier. That's a much more difficult version. Maybe you have modifiers, right? So maybe it's a Corrupted Gauntlet, but you enter it in, and like, you just have a minute taken off your prep. You have to do your prep in 1 minute less, and you have a higher chance of getting an enhanced crystal weapon seed as a result. Or let's say you go in, you have to make a perfected crystal halberd. You have to make a perfected body. You have to do XYZ. And you can use this as a way to make prep more difficult by forcing people to do things they would not normally do, and then you can reward them with a better drop rate. But we shouldn't take the content as it is and just make the item easier. The only piece of content in the entire game I feel should actually have changes to its drop table right now is the mega rares at Chambers, because it's the only raid with 3 mega rares, and like proportional to time, like you can get 3 Saes before you get 1 T-Bow. You get 3 Shadows before you get 1 T-Bow. And you would get 3 mega rares at Chambers time, but maybe not the T-Bow specifically, and the other items are just not the same power level. But Chambers drop table, discussion for another day. I don't even think the Dragon Hunter crossbow should be on the Ohm's drop table. That way, again, both is get Dragon Hunter crossbow, you can get your lance, and you get kayak, and then you can go.
Like that, just to stop, like, once it's getting up into this 1200 range, it's like, how many hours has been spent for this thing? And
yeah, and honestly, if I spent 1200 hours getting a single item in a video game and I didn't get the item, I would just look at weaker options that are still perfectly viable to use. I wouldn't just keep, like, Sisyphus or whatever his name is pushing the rock up the hill.
I just don't want people to quit over it.
I feel like,
and the solution to that is not making the BOFA easier to get, it's educating people about the other stuff they can use. Getting 92 mining for Amethyst Arrows and Scorching Bow is fine. You'll be okay. It's not as good as a BOFA, but Blush Dragonhide and a Scorching Bow is perfectly fine. I don't know why it's 2026 and we're still pretending like the BOFA is a required item.
there's just too many potential like quit moments when it comes to drop rates.
That is a lifestyle game problem. If you want to, MMOs are a lifestyle game. You are not supposed to log into RuneScape as a late game player and get an upgrade once a month. That's just not the game this is. I understand if you want that to change, that's what private servers are for. I didn't like the grind whenever I was a teenager, so what did I do? I played PK to Dice Skate.
Like, especially with people I talk to, like, I'm not talking like your 1% gamers. I'm talking,
Which is who you should design the game around. Because the casual gamers who quit at BOFA will also quit at T-Bow. They'll also quit at Scythe. They'll also
like your
quit.
average.
Whoops, I hit spacebar on accident. They'll also quit at. They'll quit at any of these other stop grind moments. The solution here, or sorry, not the solution. What I think they're trying to propose here is we make it easier to get the BOFA, because then these people aren't going to quit, but then they're going to go for their T-Bow. And what are they going to do whenever they go for their T-Bow and they're 700 raids deep and they still haven't rolled a Mega Rare one? What do we do then? Do we just make the Twisted Bow, you need less points now before you can roll the Twisted Bow, same drop rate as Ancestral? You make Ancestral easier to get, and then you make Prayer Scrolls easier to get, and do we really want to do this?
People that get into the game and then they hit that mid to end game and then they hit these walls.
They hit the point where they actually have to put time and effort into the game, and then they quit because the game is just not for them.
And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be obstacles to jump over, but these are like really bad walls sometimes for people.
Sometimes.
And I feel like we shouldn't
Should we completely change the game because of a sometime? I don't think so.
be like just okay with having these like quit moments just because there's some people that like can.
So it's actually good for the game to have quit moments, because it's like, I'm trying to think about how I want to word it. So whenever I go down to the card shop and I sit down at the Disney Lorcana table and I don't get into Disney Lorcana because I don't like Disney, it's a good thing for the Disney Lorcana players that I'm not at that table, because the game's not for me. I shouldn't be at that table. I should be at the Magic the Gathering table. Disney Lorcana should not change because I'm not the target audience. Disney Lorcana should make for the target audience. Jagex should make for their audience. And we've lost every other MMO. We have lost to this mindset of the casual player needs to be adhered to. World of Warcraft is fucked. Final Fantasy XIV is just fucking boring. Like, all of these other MMOs that are really popular, like those are the only two I can even bring up, because who even knows any other MMO besides those two in RuneScape, I should say. Like, RuneScape is so good because it is the only MMO that I can log in and know that, like, if I get an item, it actually means something. It's so frustrating that there's so many games that, like, and, like, MMOs were meant to be that outlet for losers like myself to be able to play a game, something, and then move on and feel good about it. You're taking that away.
Like Giga Spoon. And then like it's good when people get the Giga Spoon, but then you've got the people that
yeah, it's good whenever they get the item early, but whenever they have to work for the item, we need to change the entire game.
They're in like the shadow realm of like drop rates, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're in the shadow realm of drop rates at BOFA, but then they go somewhere else and they get their Twisted Bow in 50k C or their ult whatever, and like, you see, that's how the game works. You're supposed to go really dry, and then you go really spoon somewhere else. It balances it out. But I guess a lot of people probably don't think like that. They probably get like really, really, really spooned at one spot, and then they just completely forget that they got spooned, and then they get really dry somewhere else. They're like, bro, this game fucking sucks. I'm 500 gauntlets and I don't have my BOFA.
I mean, it's like they're just like lost in the fucking, like in the depths.
And whenever they're out of the depths instantly at like a raid, and all of their other friends are lost in the despair of Tob, what happens then? Do we change Tob? Nope, we don't. We don't change Tob because just ignoring averages.
And yeah, I don't think that's cool. I mean, like, I just feel bad. Like, it just makes people mad. Like, you know, if you're managing like communities, like, you know, I've had people quit because of.
Yeah, you have people quit because they get mad. That happens. I get mad. I don't pull a character in a gacha game. I delete the gacha game. I move on. I don't send letters to the devs, scream and cry about how you guys need to make the pull rates better, right? Give out more chrono crystals and Broly.
Drop rates, like they've literally just been too dry. They're like, sorry, I don't want to play anymore. And I'm like, oh geez, but
yeah. And it is good that the game filters them out.
Yeah, no, it's bad, and I think one of the main issues was that, like, I think it started really with like raids 1. They had one raid in the entire game, and
yeah. And by the way, for you guys that don't know, original Cox drop table, original Chambers was fucking awful. Dragon Throne Axes, Dragon Knives, Dragon Sword were all on the drop table. And in case you didn't know how Chambers works, like whenever you roll for a purple, it doesn't roll that you get a purple and then you get a roll of a random purple like most other like kind of content works. Like if you roll a Basilisk Draw, you roll the unique and then you roll it again and then you get like the Basilisk Draw or you get like the, you know, that kind of stuff. Chambers will roll every single purple individually of themselves whenever you go to roll. So if you get a dex, for example, that doesn't mean you missed a roll on an arc. It means you rolled a dex. And that makes it like way worse. Because it's not like you're rolling the mega rolls. You're rolling and then you just roll the Elder Maul. Roll the Kodai. And so it, in a weird way, it makes it like way worse to actually get the loot because you're not rolling the same way you are in their content. And it's just like it exasperates this issue, is what I was trying to say.
They spent a bunch of time developing it, and they're like, we need people to milk this place. So we're just going to make the rates absolutely astronomical and just never touch them again. And now we have so many different routes to take. If anybody thinks this is...
I wonder what he means by so many different routes to take there. Talking about like Chambers. So many different routes to take about what? Exactly what he means there?
It's like this is how RuneScape's always been. It hasn't been.
It hasn't.
RuneScape drop rates were like 1 in 512 for a whip. And
yeah, but that was because almost nobody could kill the NPC to get the whip. And it's because like skills used to grind, that's what he's getting ready to say. But the next comparison past this, because you're comparing a normal Slayer monster to a raid. These should not be compared to begin with, but whenever it comes to like drop rates for like bosses back then, the real comparison would be General Grardor. Imagine soloing General Grardor in 2007, like 2009, 2010, whatever, right before like Next came out. Whenever the gear wasn't super good, go and solo General Grardor until you get a Bandos chestplate, a Bandos Tacits. Back then, that gear with that skill, you know, you're not red Xing, you're not kiting around the boss, you're face tanking Grardor until he dies or until you die. If you're going to be farming for a Bandos chestplate, it's going to take you an exorbitant amount of time compared to the actual value the Bandos chestplate provides your account. That's just how RuneScape is. RuneScape has literally always been like this. Once bossing became like kind of a thing. Like, whenever the game was like KBD, Cowfight Queen, Slayer, like, yeah, you're right. Only thing we had to do to level up our accounts was skills, but that's because there wasn't any actual good gear to go for. Whenever we started getting Torva in the game, whenever we started getting like, what was a big, no, King Black Dragon didn't actually drop any big items, it was small. Whenever we started getting actual bosses that required actual time investment to kill, to actually make actual money on, that's whenever this started to change, because people realize the game is way more fun whenever you actually have good drops to chase. And you want to know what happens whenever a Bofa is easy to get? It's 30 mil, and nobody gives a fuck about Corrupted Gauntlet anymore.
KQ, a 1 in 128 for a D chain.
But how long did it take you to kill 1 KQ? Super fucking long time. No defense reduction. Face tanking with Virax was the best. There was no shortcut. It took you 5 minutes just to bank. It was like nightmare. Nobody really killed KQ unless you were like a supreme late game player who the only thing you had to do was chase a dragon chain body. That was it. And what happened when you finally got that dragon chain body? It was like getting a twisted bow, because it took about that much fucking time back then for most people.
Was insane. Bandos is like a 1 in, to get a drop, it's like a 1 in, 118 or something.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to go over the point again. Go solo with 2008 gear and skill and tell me if it takes you, or see how long it takes you on rate to get that. It's going to be a long fucking time.
Thing like that. Or
you got to get the kill count. You get 1 kill per trip, 2 if you're lucky. Like,
or it's like a,
what did these people even farm that stuff back then? You know what I mean? Like fuck, bro. Farming Bandos back in the day was rough.
1 in 383 or something for a specific thing. Like these
DKs instead.
And that was outrageous at the time. Like to get a God Wars.
Because he's talking about the drop rate, but he's completely ignoring the context on how slow the kills were then. A Bandos kill back then, if you accounted kill count and all of them, was probably like a full Doom nowadays.
Drop was just holy hell. But going the drop rate to get tacits, like if you're in efficient gear, if you are just rocking full Torva or whatever, you're just gonna go.
Yeah, if you have modern gear and you go back to old content, you can get the gear fast. Wow, who would have fucking guessed?
The Bandos, you can get over 20 kills an hour. So you're only looking at a 15-hour grind, or up to a 20-hour grind to get a unique piece of these items. And then you're talking about raids, and you're looking at like 400 hours for some.
Because Bandos isn't best in slot anymore. Those took like hours back in the day. Assets. If you pretended the gear back then was the best, is it? You know what I'm contextually what I'm saying. I'm just having a brain fart and can't talk right now. If you make all factors the same, Bandos is best in slot. Raids is best in slot. These grinds proportionally take about as long. Like Bandos isn't even very good, honestly. Like the stats on the armor is not great. It's not even really that worthwhile going out of your way to get. It's worth it to repair your Torva. Even before Oath played, it really wasn't all that. I just don't understand. Like, train of thought. Started talking about too many.
Somebody to get a T-bow, and that's like on rate. And then if you go 3 times rate, you're looking.
Yeah, but whenever you get that T-bow, how much faster does it make every other grind?
At 1,200 hours. Like, why can't we just take an honest look at these pieces of content and just understand this game is so vibrant with so much content?
Which means this actually works against him, because he's going to make this argument. This game's so vibrant, you have all this content, but you're locking yourself to Corrupted Gauntlet. You're locking yourself to Chambers of Xeric. But my argument is, isn't that an exact argument that you don't have to do that? If this game has all this content, why are you ruining your experience getting a fucking Bofa? Why are you ruining your experience getting a T-bow? I've never had a Mega Rare in my entire RuneScape career. I got bored of Mainscape whenever I started getting into raiding, because I'm like, oh, I got a Masori body. Now I have like half the items I wanted. This shit's boring as hell. So I started playing an Iron Man. I haven't gotten a Mega Rare in my Iron Man. I can tell you right now, I've done almost all the content in the entire game. The main thing I haven't done hard mode Tob. I haven't cleared Coliseum yet. The modifiers piss me off. I get back in there. And that's pretty much it. Nightmare, I haven't done Fasani's because there's no reason to kill that boss. Um, yeah, I think that's it. I've never touched a mega rare. If mega rares are so required, why can I do all of this content without having a single one ever on my account? Because they're not required. Just gaslight themselves into like, oh, the T-Bow, we can get it 90 on Vasa. Holy shit. Bro, I gotta have it. You don't have to have it. You don't need a Lambo.
Been advocating endlessly about Fasani's. Nightmare has been changed like 7 times.
I actually did not know he was going to talk about Fasani's hair. Yeah, Fasani's a complete. I'm going to let him talk about Fasani. There's a big reason Fasani and CG is not even close to the same beast. And
has anybody once ever complained about them drastically increasing the drop rates? They're still outrageous, by the way.
Has anybody once ever farmed Inquisitor?
Which is insane after 7 individual buffs to the place. And yet,
has anybody once ever walked to Nightmare in between kills? That's why nobody cares about Nightmare being. You go to Gauntlet, your Gauntlet's over, you loot the chest, you go back in, you're immediately doing Gauntlet again. What happens at Nightmare when you die? How do you get back to Nightmare? You get your stuff, you have to go bank, you spend like 15 minutes walking back to the place. What's the closest is Tob Bank, right? You have to walk all the way to sleep from Tob Bank through the Sisterhood Sanctuary, whatever that is. You have to go all the way there. Then you have to get the Fasani. Then you have to kill this boss that does not drop gear suited to its difficulty level. And then, after you go through all of these steps, you have this super low drop rate on an item you are never going to use in your entire life. The reason nobody cares about Nightmare being changed is because Nightmare's too hard for the things that it drops. Nightmare needs to be easier, or Inquisitor slash Nightmare Staff, not so much. But Inquisitor and the Mace need to be stronger. One of those two things needs to happen in order for Nightmare to be the same level as the Bofa. Because Crush is dog shit. Nobody cares about it. Bofa is not dog shit. People do care about it. And so whenever you make this argument, you have to also keep in mind that you're talking about an item that is very good versus items that are not very good. And people are not going to care about items that aren't good being made easier to get than versus items that are good. If you put a Twisted Bow on the Goblin's drop table, that will cause a lot more ruckus than taking a magic short bow, put it on a Goblin's drop table. Both of these things completely warp the game. They completely warp Iron Man specifically. But the Twisted Bow example is way worse because a Twisted Bow is harder to get. It's supposed to be harder to get. It's supposed to be worse whenever it's moved.
Nobody is complaining. The economy is fine. Item prices.
That's because there's no good Crush.
Change all the time, and I think people are so scared.
Items change all the time, so let's make the Bofa 50 item, boys.
Of like this old content, like Raids 1, ever having any drop rate changes.
It's not that you don't need to change drop rates. It's that you need, if you're going to be making items easier to get, adjust the context as well. You can't just say Bofa's hard to get, people quit getting Bofa, therefore we make Bofa 1 and 3. Therefore we add dry protection. Therefore we do all this. Because again, I think it's fine. If you want to add dry protection in the game, that's fine. Also add spoon protection. Make everything like the Desert Treasure 2 Vestiges, which is the reason why we don't want to have this happen. Nobody likes DT2 Vestige rolls. Nobody likes the way that works. But that is exactly the system you get whenever you can't go dry. Can't go dry, you also should not be able to get spooned, because otherwise, all you're doing is you're cutting off the far end, and then the economy gets completely fucked for it. Maybe not now, but if imagine you get dry protection on a T-Bow, it's not that difficult, really, to, like, make an account, get them chambers ready. If you get one dry protected T-Bow per account, why would you not just train up an account, 700 raids, let's say, or however many the T-Bow dry protection is, 1,200, because on average, you'll probably be doing pretty good. I know so many people who've done over 1,000 chambers. In fact, that's the normal. So why would you not just make a new account, farm out your T-Bow, and then make a new account, farm out your dry protected T-Bow, new account, farm the dry protected T-Bow. This is what I'd do. If I was a main and I wanted to make money, why would I rely on RNG? Whenever I could just make a new account, get my dry protected T-Bow, and if you don't get only one dry protected account, well, Let me just do chambers all day long and super fucking wealthy. It won't even matter. I won't have to rely on RNG or nothing. Like, what's even the point in playing the game anymore?
We just need to get to the point
the items
where, and I know we're supposed to be talking about CG here, but like just in general, drop rates don't need to be insane. Like the grind for RuneScape was always about skilling. It wasn't about like getting a new item. The new item was,
and that was before items could hit 90. That was before items never missed and hit 40s. Like, this is, you know, like, yeah, the grind has never been about items, but now that items are super strong, the grind should be about items. That's what you do. You change the game whenever the game changes.
It's always around the like 20 to 30 hour range. If you,
and those items maxed out at a 50, and they weren't super accurate. All of these items he's talking about were items that are nowhere near the power level we are. Items should get proportionally harder to get the more stronger they get, or the proportional to the power they have, I guess is the better way to put it. Like, let's assume it takes you 20 hours to farm out your entire in-log bandos outside of pet. How much stronger is a twisted bow than a bandos chestplate, bandos tassets, and bandos godsword set? A lot. About 10 to 15 times. So it should take, at minimum, 10 to 15 times longer to get the twisted bow, which will put you at 400 hours. And again, I think that's fine. Like the twisted bow grind, like if you're doing efficient solos, pretty good. I mean, I haven't actually grinded out a twisted bow. 80 challenge mode.
wanted to get some new Besson slot. Now it's just like order of magnitude higher, which is just,
and the gear is an order of magnitude, actually like 7 orders of magnitude beyond what gear used to be. Like I think about whenever EOC came out, I think the strongest thing in the game was a Staff of Armadyl, as far as magic goes. I'm like 99% sure I didn't have Staff of Armadyl back then. Like Tunic and Shadow was quite a bit stronger, right? Like you could use Staff of Armadyl in PvP's difference, but Armadyl, I think the spell was called. Like, should we have items in the game like the Tunic and Shadow, the Scythe, items that are the be-all end-all of them, items that are always better than everything else that you could possibly have for that combat style? Is it a good thing for the game to have those items at much easier rates? And if the argument is, well, we don't want the mega rares, stuff to get the mega rares, Ofa, I have Ayak easy, make Treads easy, all the Slayer bosses easy. Like, unless the argument then is that only things that can take a long time to get, we need to change. Okay, so we changed the Dragon War, changed the Bofa, actually to name, it's been a while since the grinds. One could argue you really don't want to be raiding. Like if the Bofa needs to be easier to get because the rune crossbows are good enough, so Arams isn't good enough then, and Blue enough because like proportionally that's the same tier. So now we need to make Virtus easier to get. So we shouldn't make that like a 1 in 1,000. It should be like a 1 in 300. And whenever you get a piece of Virtus, you can't roll that piece again until you have the full set, right? So we do that. Now Virtus is easy to get, so now it's easier to get your Ancestral. The Dragon Hunter Lance, it takes a long time to get that skill. It's a 1 in 1,000. Let's just make Hydra's like 80 Slayer. Put it around there. 80's too slow. 90, put it around the Krakens. You know, make it a lot easier to get it. That way you can get into your raiding faster, because that's what they're wanting. And then what you do is the Hydra Claw is not a 1 in 1,000 anymore. You have to get your tasks. Then you have to get the drop. How many people do you know at 2,000 Hydras without a claw? Shit, I know a lot. So what we need to do now is the Hydra Claw needs to be like a 1 in 500. If you've rolled the leather, you just get the claw instead if you roll the leather now. Like, this is the kind of thing that happens if this gets, you know, there's so many second, third, fourth, fifth order effects on drop rates that have to happen from this one change if we follow the same level that it's going up. Like, because the Bofa is the big thing. If this goes through, right, what they would like to happen goes through, the Bofa becomes easier. We just move on to the next thing. Now the Dragon Warhammer's annoying. Well, now it's annoying to get the Ayak because, like, I've rolled so many cloths. Like this is just the same conversation reskin for every necessary item in the entire game. You can get all of your mega rares with a crossbow. Let anybody tell you.
Outrageous.
If I were to play devil's advocate,
Scythe will have somebody.
Which I would say is probably the position I'd take. The price of an item really does reflect. I mean, it's just the supply and demand of it. So 4 items.
Yeah. Went back a little bit. How did disturbance?
Higher, which is just outrageous.
If I were to play devil's advocate, which I would say is probably the position I'd take. The price of an item really does reflect. I mean, it's just the supply and demand of it.
Yeah, I do think that items are purely by supply and demand. I don't think strength really has that much of an indicator on. I mean, of course it does, because the stronger an item is, the higher demand it will have. But I don't think that strength specifically relates the price. I was trying to think how a good example of this would be like the example. Thing is a item, but how low its strength rate was, flooded. So like the supply was really high, so it didn't matter how strong it was. The thing was never 20 mil. Changed the drop rates.
So 4 items like the Twisted Bow, it's a really good item. Of course, so a lot of people are going to want it. So the way that, of course, the developers balance around this fact of, we can't have a Twisted Bow be as easy to get as a whip, for instance. So,
yeah, exactly. And that was kind of the argument that I was making earlier. Like, yeah, a whip is 1 in 512, but a whip only hits 4. What does a TPO hit?
So when you are looking at balancing those things, when you do reduce it, is there some sense where even, Jagex is like, well, we can't really reduce the rarity of these items, because then we would have people, your Bofa skip to just go get a T-bow would just be too easy. Should there be a little bit more?
Which honestly, it's kind of is already. I wouldn't say too easy, but like Scorching Bow and Blowpipe Chambers, like if you haven't done it, just AFK stars for a week, get 92 mining, go to Veil Totems, get your fletching up, get your amethyst darts, get your amethyst arrows. Oh, it's so good. You won't have to spend those 3,000 hours Gauntlet. Good.
Of a incentive to go and get that Bofa first. If we're retreating back to CG, I think it's really interesting that so far all of us have just the main thing that we've hit on is not necessarily the drop rate. It's just going dry. Going dry sucks.
Yeah, and that's always going to happen. And you want to know an easy way to make this better on yourself? Never look at drop rates. Because the problem isn't that I'm 600 kills without Bofa. I wonder if a single one of these people would be upset with the Bofa if it was a 1 in 1,000 drop rate instead. Like, it was functionally 1 in 400, but everywhere said it was 1 in 1,000. I wonder if we would have so many people so mad about going dry, because it's the going dry that sucks. If you go into CG expecting going to 1,000 kills before you get your Bofa, maybe it wouldn't be so bad for these people. Because that's what I did. I just assume everywhere I'm going to go excruciatingly dry. And whenever I do go dry, it's just not that big of a deal. It's just what I expected. And maybe that's the difference. Like, I just kind of prepare myself for it. Whereas, like, so many other people see 1 in 400 and expect to have it at 400. But no, it's like, what, 65% of people don't have it by 1 in 400?
And for something like CG, it seems that even though right now, like, you can go and get the Atlatl and just have it be good enough.
Scorching Bow is better than Atlatl, because you get the extra range, but you do have to level up your crafting, fletching, and all of that. Mining. Scorching Bow, in my opinion, miles better than the Atlatl. You Scorching Bow for Inferno, it's fine.
You can go and get the Eye of a Yak and have that be good enough.
Treads and your cloth.
Even still, people are choosing to lock themselves in CG.
Because they either have been lied to about the Bofa being so necessary. I'm not sure what the other reason would be, actually. They don't know much about the game. They don't know much about, like, the content that's came out. Like, they have blogs to see how fucking statted the Scorching Bow is for being a bane weapon. I'm not sure.
I mean, truthfully, it's been revealed that CG isn't locking people in. It's people locking themselves into CG, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Do we really need to change the game because people are choosing to lock themselves to a piece of content they don't even need? You know?
the doors of that crystal place are locked from the inside, not out. So there is this situation where I think really what they need to do is, if we do see that people really want to do this content and really think that this item is needed, could there be a solution to where we have some sort of dry protection? Like what is immediately available in my mind is.
So I probably should have responded earlier. No, we don't need to make a dry protection just because people don't know enough about the game. Because that's essentially what's being said here. People are locking themselves to CG. So now we need to make the drop rate easy. Is like, and he's not making that argument. He's like prefacing that he's getting ready to argue against that. But it's just a pure, like, I think about every other time in a game where we've had a discussion where it's like, people quit and don't like this. And whenever they say people, they don't mean the people who play the game. They mean the people who start playing the game, start to enjoy the game, and then realize what the game's actually about, and then quitting. That's completely different. How many veterans are quitting old school RuneScape because of Corrupted Gauntlet? Whenever I say veterans, I don't mean somebody who played in 2007, got 500 total, logged on for 30 minutes a night, and then they're a RuneScape dad. Not that. I'm talking about people who actually play the game.
Some sort of way to trade in shards, but that's like a lot of shards. I also maybe think of, could we have a...
And also, I didn't mention this earlier, this problem is specific to the Iron Man game mode. This problem does not exist for mains. If you go dry on a main, you still get enough normal loot at most places that you will still make money. So if you're an Iron Man and you're going really, really on a Bofa and you really, really want to get into raiding, you can go to Lumbridge, Iron Man tutor, and talk to him, and he'll remove your Iron Man status. And then you can go to the Grand Exchange, sell your items, and just buy what you want. If you want to get it the easy way.
Situation in which you sacrifice all of your other loot, like you're sacrificing your armor seeds, you're sacrificing all of the normal loot in order to get some sort of multiplier for the...
Why do we want to have a pet mechanic? What? I don't necessarily think it's a bad argument or anything. It's just that's not what that system's for. You're supposed to give up your loot to give you a cosmetic item that doesn't do anything. You're not supposed to give up loot to get more loot. That's not how that system's designed.
The enhanced weapon seed, when I was looking it up on the wiki, the enhanced weapon seed was less than half the monetary value of your GP per hour.
Which in my opinion means that we should make it more. No, it means that the Bofa is not expensive enough, in my opinion. Because if the big chase item isn't even half of your loot, good. I need to look at like raids and stuff. I don't really look at like profit per hour because I played Iron Man for so long. I really look at the price of items, but is it the same way at like chambers and all that? Like Tob, is Scythe like less than half of the money you make per hour? I'm pretty sure that's not true. Let me look it up. Curious. Oh, Twissabo is over half your G. Oh, God, stop money maker. Let's see here, Scythe. It is... Jesus Christ, it's almost all of your. Okay, so let me look. Let me just do Toa. I wasn't gonna do it. Let's just expert. Okay, even this. So if you look at the raids, the big drop. Holy fuck! This is turning me into an angel. There we go. Now you guys can actually see something. My face isn't reflective. But every single raid, the big drop is more than half of the money you make. So if anything, the Bofa needs to be more expensive. It needs to be made harder to get, so that it's Corrupted Gauntlet can remain a viable moneymaker, proportional to the drops that it has.
So that could work, and then you when you look at the economics of doing that, that would make all that base loot more valuable because there'd be less people.
Maybe the dragon arrows. I don't think there's anything else from Gauntlet that isn't coming into the game in mass amounts elsewhere. Most of the stuff you get from CG is like runes, alks. And a lot of that, like, if you just remove a lot of that from the game, it's not really going to change the value of the items too much, because most of it is like, you can buy runes from a shop, you buy, alks are already at their alk price. Battle stabs are already at their alk price. Like, if you remove all of these items, like, it's not going to really so much coming in from the game elsewhere. Like, the main thing will be the crystal armor might operate a bit.
Choosing to obtain all of the base loot
price.
Would that also?
I said base loot. Never mind. So you'd still get your weapon, armor, and enhanced weapon seeds.
Would that also then reduce the value of? I want to say the enhanced weapon seed. It's really just the BOFA, right? I mean, would that reduce the market value of it? Sure. But then because it's reducing the market value of it, you also have to think about these second and third order effects. Because the BOFA is reduced in market value, then less people would be choosing to sacrifice all their other loot. So that's what sounds like. If I were to just to simply offer something up with like no dev time, that's probably what it would be. But it doesn't. I don't know. It's just not fun or thematic in my mind. And I like, as much as I like sacrificing to get pets, it's just lazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got a hot take.
Big true. So I completely agree with a lot of what he said there. I mean, he didn't really say that like we should have dry protection, we shouldn't have dry protection, anything like that. But I do think did a very good job about like, yeah, we shouldn't really say it. Go back and listen. Actually,
I don't know.
I've got a hot take, and
that's probably what it would be. But it doesn't. I don't know. It's just not fun or thematic.
Okay, yeah. What I was gonna say pretty much is like, no matter which way you take that direction, you either leave it how it is, people aren't happy, or you change it and you actually do like sacrifice your loot. But again, like, it's lazy, and it just creates this like rotating machine where like, but sacrifice your loot. Now the BOFA becomes cheap because there's more BOFAs, and then people stop sacrificing. There's less BOFAs in the game. BOFA comes start sacrificing their loot. Like, is that really something we want?
In my mind, and I like, as much as I like sacrificing to get pets.
And sacrificing to get pets is a completely different thing too, because like when you're sacrificing loot for pets, you're always taking a loss because you're never going to make your money back on a pet grind, and everybody knows that.
It's just lazy. I don't know.
I've got a hot take, and this is just how I feel about Corrupted Gauntlet. How about we just eliminate the skilling part of it, and you let...
How about we just take away the entire learning curve of Gauntlet? No, we should not take out. There's so much to the skilling aspect of Gauntlet that people appreciate. I will tell you, like, I have a clanmate that's really, really, really learning Corrupted Gauntlet right now. I've been helping him a lot with it. And him learning Corrupted Gauntlet, and this is a guy who I do challenge mode chambers with, challenge mode raids. Like, we do like expert TOAs, He is a literally completely different gamer now that he's done 40 CGs versus all of these raids. And it's not because of the Hunla fight. It's not because of that. The skilling aspect of Gauntlet teaches you conserving game ticks. It teaches you how to be efficient with your pathing. It teaches you how to be efficient. Like, you can be mining a rod, get an experience drop, hit a mob, hit the rocket. Little things like that. It teaches you so much about how to think about combat and RuneScape whenever you learn how to do all of these skilling aspects. Like, he's so much better. Whenever we go to Zabak, his skipping on the poison puddles is so much better than it used to be, and it's because of Gauntlet. It's because he's actually had to think about where his character's going to be ahead of time. You don't really have to think about that in a lot of other pieces of content. Don't remove the skilling aspect. This is my honest response to this. If you remove the skilling aspect from Gauntlet and you just have people fight Hunlip, that drop rate should be 1 in 5,000 for the enhanced.
me just go to the boss, because I'm done with that.
1 in 5,000.
There's always different routes to take it. You can adjust drop rates or you can adjust kill times. And one of the things they did with Fasani's was just eliminate a phase. That was
They did multiple different things at Fasani, but we're going to go back to the Fasani conversation, I think, here. There's a huge difference between a piece of content nobody wants to farm and drops items nobody wants versus a piece of content that nobody wants to farm but does drop items people.
It's great. That was a fantastic thing. We're just
Notice how nobody's killing Fasani even when it changes. Because the boss is shit, the items are shit.
made the fight
You move Bofa to Fasani's drop table, you will see people go to Fasani to kill.
feel a little bit more clean. I mean, imagine if CG just simply had resources stacked for one, and maybe when you kill.
Well, if you do that, it just completely removes the aspect about corrupted Gauntlet. You're not talking about changing Gauntlet. You're talking about removing Gauntlet and just having a boss you just go there and fight. Gauntlet is supposed to be different. It's supposed to be unique content. You're not supposed to go into Gauntlet, kill the boss, and leave. It's supposed to be unique. It's supposed to be special, and it shouldn't be changed because people marry themselves to the Bofa.
A rat, it just goes into your inventory. You don't need to pick it up. It's just
And like, I don't really think it's that big of a deal if you just vacuum the loot like that. But again, whenever you do small things like this, you're completely losing part of the content. Part of CG and part of getting good at CG prep is planning out your room where you can hit the mobs and mine the resources and lose minimal time. I'm not usually waiting on an enemy to disappear to pick up the items. One, because it only shows up a tick after you kill them in CG. Two, because I'm harvesting a resource while the death animation is going off. These are things that you can learn that will make your CG much, much, much better. And maybe they do these things and maybe it's just fucking boring to them and they don't like, hey, fair. But I don't think you should just fundamentally remove an entire aspect about a piece of content. Just because like people don't like getting the item. It's not even necessarily that they dislike the content, it's that they dislike the grind of getting the item from the content. And Nightmare wasn't the same as that. Nightmare had a fucking awful walk to it, had an awful kill, and it had awful loot. It had 3 bad things going for it. CG, we have. I'm not really going to speak for the kill because like CG is such a mixed bag on whether people like it or dislike it. I'm not going to say if it has a good or bad combat and prep. I personally think prep and CG is one of the fun things and call me weird, but CG. Most people enjoy the Hunla fight itself, maybe not the prep, but the Hunla fight itself, a lot of people enjoy. People enjoy the loot from CG. Even if you're not getting uniques, you're getting decent drops, right? Like, if you go to Chambers of Zarek, you might get Saltpeter and fucking Pure Essence. I mean, I get Mithril Arrows, but you're getting 3 kills at CG. The chance you're going to get bad loot on all 3 of those, I think it happened once.
like
I've gotten Saltpeter Pure Essence a lot of times at Chambers and
everything becomes more rapid. You're just killing stuff. It magnets into your inventory. I know Leagues does a lot of that stuff, where just stuff just comes into you.
And if that does happen, you should also reduce the amount of time you have in prep. So like vacuuming it, maybe that's worth 30 seconds. Probably not. 30 seconds is probably a lot more time to save, honestly. Probably save like a minute. Vacuum all the.
And that's wonderful. I mean, so again, if you just want to make content more fun and engaging, we know the formula to making content more fun. I think there's always this like hesitation. Again, like I still am holding on to like keep things old school, but if it's something like CG where it's just like a standalone little area, you can have some crystal magic that's making items just go into your inventory without picking them up, and like that would speed things along and making it so.
Yeah, I'm not really too worried about the whole like vacuuming it onto it. I do think know how to make content fun and engaging. Yeah, I mean, it was like best MMO out there, right?
Things are stacking, so if you're trying to do a tier 3 prep, you don't have to like drop all your shit over here and then like run back over to the plate. Like that is just obnoxious.
Oh, whenever he said stacking resources, he meant stacking your inventory. I thought it was like stacked in. But stacking resources I think is fine, man. One of those things I don't really like it too much. Again, reduce the amount of time since you're doing time in prep. Like anytime, like I think all these changes are fine. Just reduce the time you have in prep as well. Like make it proportional.
And just
I think CG should still be proportionally the same difficulty to do a tier 1, tier 2 prep. after these changes as before these changes.
It's having unlimited tellies back to home. I mean, the fact that
No. The tellies back to home is actually really, really good because it makes you manage your cards, and it lets, so if you have a bad prep, you actually have to do something to fix it. But if you have infinite tellies and you have a bad like spawn, you no longer have skill to fix it. You just always clear it, which I don't really enjoy that. Like having the skill to manage a bad spawn in CG is, again, part of the fun of CG. CG is a puzzle. If you like puzzles and you do every gauntlet as a puzzle, you will probably enjoy it.
You're like banking on like an RNG drop to like have a teleport back to the main.
It's either 60 or 80 shards. I don't remember. I never have to make teleports. But just make one. Just kill an extra mob. You should have plenty. Like I do tier 2 prep and I have like 2.5 minutes left. Like you have enough time to farm another
main like central area. Why can't we just have like unlimited of those like from the get-go, where just everything becomes rapid? It's not like this RNG fest, and it's just I
mean, it still is. It's not an RNG fest before. You just bear crystal.
A lot more engaging, I think.
Yeah, I think that's more my stance as to why, like I said, I disagree with changing the drop rates.
Yeah, if anything, they should add a next level above Corrupted Gauntlet. Maybe you make the Hunla fight like balls to the wall, super difficult, no prep. Maybe you combine all of these ideas and we just have a super difficult Hunla fight with none of the prep, and then you make the Bofa a little more common from that because it's so difficult to actually kill Hunla. Like even good players will die 2 or 3 times before they get one, especially at the start. Like the average player who actually just needs to farm their Bofa, it will still take proportionally the same amount of time, but they will do less kills because they'll have a more difficult time getting a.
And largely because
think about it like doing Doom at wave 5, going up to wave 5 in Delve for your treads and stuff versus going to Delve 20. Like it's a completely different piece of content. But the people going to Delve 20, they're not usually Ironman farming their drops, they're mains farming. And so you need to be at that, in my opinion, things need to be like that difficult to make things much.
Like
that makes sense.
The grind to get a Bofa, like hour wise, is probably something like 80 hours. But it's like the longest 80 hours of your life because you're spending like 70% in there, like doing shitty, sucky content. I mean,
I wonder if it's because people don't try to constantly evolve the prep. Like, I haven't heard so many people so upset about prep before. Like, I mostly hear people just upset that like they're more frustrated that they're not good at prep. Like most of the people who have farmed CG long term, they don't mind the prep because, like, in my opinion, Hunlip is the boring part of CG because Hunlip, like, first 2 phases are fucking boring. Nothing's going on. You like 4 tiles every now and again, and then on the last phase, you AFK on 1 tile, and then you run across the room, and then you do like a little diagonal thing back to your original tile, and then you're AFK hitting Hunlip again. Like, in my opinion, the prep is the only part about Gauntlet where you actually have to think and you actually have to do something.
I mean, the Hunlip fight itself, when I was first doing it, your first 100 Hunlip actually feels pretty good. And then you start to get pretty fatigued as you go.
The first Hunlip where you get all of your right, and you never hit him off style, and you get the perfected Hunlip. It feels so good. It feels so goddamn good.
On further and further because you're doing the prep and whatnot. So I'm more in the camp of less changing the drop rate, more so like I think Hunlip could probably use a health reduction of like 150 or so. Like it's a little bit too long to fight.
Yeah, sure.
I think the stacking is an example.
Not that big of a deal.
Of like the resources. I think once you find like one fishing room, like you shouldn't have to like try to find another room. The map itself, no one wants to go.
I think he was like kind of talking about never depleting resources. Every time you find one fishing room, you don't need to find another one. I think if you made resources never deplete, that's all. I think that's also fine. Big deal.
To the other side of the map. If you are in the position where you're opening up those lights, something is wrong with your run. You're probably not gonna have time for everything. You might even reset. So like shrink that thing down. Like just make it smaller. Like just who cares? Nobody cares. Just make it that 6.
I also think you can make the
6, 7 squares there, smaller. And that's it. You have your weapons, you have your gear, you've got everything, and you're ready to go. So yeah, I like the Fasani change where they remove the face. I love that.
I also think what they should do is make it to where the bosses, all the middle 3 on the mini bosses that can spawn mini bosses, that should always have a mini. I think if you're going to remove any RNG about CG, the worst RNG in boss is just not fucking spawning on an entire side. I think if you make it to where you always get 3 bosses per, I think that would go a long way in making CG much, much, much more man.
No one's ever going to complain with that. Most people aren't going to complain with even changing the drop rates themselves. Like I'm not totally against it. We did it with the Dragon Warhammer.
Yeah.
But we all think in context. Why did we change the Dragon Warhammer? Because the Elder Maul was buffed. Dragon Warhammer, not the best defense reducing weapon in the game anymore. The Bofa is still the second best ranged weapon in the game. So, if we want to reduce Bofa still, that's fine, but just keep in mind, Dragon Warhammer, completely different ballgame.
Right, and people were fine with it.
That was a healthy change.
And also, another reason, Dragon Warhammer, the meta was setting up a cannon and AFKing in one spot while 3 other accounts stopped the shamans from moving. There was no skill involved whatsoever in farming a Dragon Warhammer. None. Like, you give a level 3 prey range, Shazy, and armor, they could kill a shaman. No worries.
Yeah, it was a good change. With items that are like pretty good into your progression, they shouldn't take terribly long. Items that are like mega rares and whatnot, I do think, yeah, sure, T-Bow. But I don't have a T-Bow. I'm like 1,200 raids in, mostly solo raids too. But it's the end game. I'm not blocked to not move. Like I can't move to other content because I don't have a T-Bow. But
you can't move to other content because you don't have a Bofa either. You know, like I'm not gonna sit here and say like just use a rune crossbow. I'm not gonna sit here and just say use a rune crossbow your entire RuneScape life. But I mean, shit, if if people back whenever corrupt, oh my god, I can't talk. If people back during the launch of Chambers were using blowpipes and rune crossbows to get through their raid with way worse accessories like your necklaces, your ring, way worse base like armor. If they can get their T-bows, we can get our T-bows without a Bofa, right? Like, especially whenever you can go Scorching Bow, that's like a 10-hour grind at most. Like, you get your first synapse, you just throw that bitch into a Scorching Bow. Go do Scorching Bow blowpipe Chambers. I've said it like 100 times in this video, but I'm telling you, it's so much better.
Like, someone might feel like they can't move from CG because they don't have a Bofa.
And I think we should teach players that the Bofa isn't required. There's a lot of ranged weapons in the game that fit into that mid-game progression. You can raid to T-Bow in Atlatl. You can raid to T-Bow and you could raid to T-Bow in only a blowpipe without even having a longer range weapon. And it's also ignoring the fact that you know what's a lot more common from Chambers than a Twisted Bow and is a lot better than Bofa at home? The Dragon Hunter crossbow. You do not, like, we don't need a Bofa. We don't.
Right? So it's different because it's content that leads to other content. So I would still focus more on making it more fun, making it quicker. You'd have to change the speed times or whatever. Obviously, that's the trade-off there. Or maybe
I don't think we need to make the grind of Corrupted Gauntlet specifically faster though. I just don't feel the need for that. Like, maybe if this conversation was before the Atlatl, before the Scorching Bow, maybe we could talk about it more seriously then, but we have more side grades in the game now. We have more items in the game that get you to the Bofa. Or sorry, that get you to the T-Bow without the Bofa.
It's a different version of the Gauntlet once again. That'd be a third version, but
I'm all for a third version. That's just really difficult.
It's just not fun content. And it's also not fun because it's not getting power creeped like all other content. You mentioned Bandos
and I think that's exactly why you shouldn't really make it too much faster, if faster at all to get. If an item is so well designed that it's not getting power crept, there's no items coming to the game that are more powerful than that are like dislodging it in content really. So if that's not happening, why do we want to make the item easy? That does not make sense to me. If, let's say, for example, back in the day, use the whip as an example. The same argument here, if we go back in time with the Abyssal Whip, is I go to school, I come home, I go do Slayer, and I get to play for 2-4 hours a day. I don't get enough Slayer experience. I can't get a whip. So instead of introducing, let's just like boosting past +5, maybe make it to where it's really difficult to get a +7 Slayer boost, but you can get it at 78, and then you can go grind out your whip super early. Instead of doing that, let's just make Abyssal Demons level 80 Slayer, because now you don't have to spend nearly as much time getting that level. It takes so long, you know, it's not fun killing fucking Bloodvelds for 20 hours a day to get Slayer experience. So let's just make it easier. Let's just get people to that progressional step faster so that they can then move on to further content. This is the same exact argument.
AQ, like, you know, 1 in 128, etc. Like, by today's standards, that's even lower because we're so much stronger, right? Where before it was much harder. But like the CG, we're not getting any new prayers anytime soon, and we barely do. So you're going into CG with like your stats. That's it, right? So it doesn't matter what you do outside of the CG. By and large, it's never going to get power crept like everything else. So
he meant you can't power creep Gauntlet itself. You not power creeping the Bofa itself. Okay, so yeah, I mean, Gauntlet isn't going to be getting faster kill times with stuff you have outside of the game, but a lot of the things that do get faster kill times, a lot of the time, don't have that big of drops. Like whenever something like Hob or Toa or Chambers gets vastly different kill times, it's because a super strong item has been introduced. Hellfight Queen gets power crept by a quest reward.
Bofa is going to become less and less relevant, and relatively speaking, it's going to become a slower grind compared to other things that are speeding up.
And if that happens, we might be able to revisit, and then we change the drop rates. But the problem then won't be that Corrupted Gauntlet takes too long. It will be that Gauntlet has stayed the same, and everything around it hasn't. So, in that case, it's not really the Bofa's fault if other things come out that make it stronger. And let me re-listen to that. I heard wrong.
Power crept like every soon, and we barely do. So you're going into CG with like your stats. That's it, right? So it doesn't matter what you do outside of the CG. By and large, it's never going to get power crept like everything else. So Bofa is going to become less and less relevant, and relatively speaking, it's going to become a slower grind compared to other things that are speeding up.
Okay, yeah, I did remember right. I couldn't remember if you said that first part of there. But if the Bofa becomes less and less relevant, the way you fix that is by either A, making the Bofa stronger, or C, just letting old content become irrelevant. Is the whip relevant nowadays whenever you have the Noxious Halberd, the blade, and scythe? Not really. People use it for a while. They use it in that little game step. They get their Osmanton's Fang, get their Blade of Sail. You know, the whip has a very small point in people's progression anymore, when it used to be the be-all, end-all melee weapon. This is an example of just how game progresses over time. It's fine if the Bofa becomes relevant. In fact, it's probably a bad thing for the game if 10 years from now the Bofa is still in the same exact spot it is right now.
Right, over time, over 2-3 years. So it's gonna go in both those directions, which is gonna make it worse of a grind for people who decide to do it.
But they don't have to do it. It will be a less relevant item. Again, this would be like complaining about Inquisitor being too difficult to get. Like, yeah, sure, it might be difficult to get, but why are you there? Just go somewhere else instead. I mean, if you want to do this inefficient grind, what's the problem with someone doing grind?
So yeah, that's a bit of a ramble. I've been holding off for 5 minutes or so.
Insights. But Dale, do you have anything?
I mean, I'm not really against like any CG, like enhanced weapon seed drop changes. I mean, I like CG, so I found it really satisfying to get good at the prep and like getting a good.
Yeah, me too. Getting really, really good at prep is very, very fun. Also, I have to say, Mike's camera, how does he get? I've never seen anyone have the blur background like. I guess he just has a shaped blur filter. I didn't even notice it was all blurred in the background until he got.
Prep still is very satisfying to me. I mean, I struggled a lot to learn, but I feel like that learning process was really satisfying.
Yeah, and also it carries on into other things, like being really good and efficient with your pathing, and just having that base muscle memory of your like efficient pathing actually mattering like people really undersell just how important the little things like that is. CG teaches you so many little mindset things that if you extrapolate on top of them in other pieces of content will make your life so much
easier. I don't have any problem though if they make it less rare or whatever. Like, let everybody get a Bofa. That's fine. But
yeah, I don't think you don't let everyone get a Bofa. I remember whenever the Bofa was an item that was so far and above out of my reach as a player that the dream of being able to get a Bofa is what drove me as a main back in the day. Like, without looking up any guides or anything, I would just go into Corrupt a Gauntlet. And I would just try to do it for like hours a day, and I would never get a kill. And whenever I was finally able to farm CG, it felt so good. Whenever I was finally able to farm Chamber, all of these other pieces of content, it feels so good to finally get there. And so it feels a lot less good if a Bofa is easy to buy, right? If it's more common, it's easier to get. That allure, that drive to go for it, also goes.
Loves the game. He just loves the
game. I don't think it was that bad of a grind. I didn't go like super dry, but
I didn't go super dry either. I don't think it's that bad of a grind, but I don't think just because you go dry it's bad. I think if you're going dry on an item and it's making you really, really upset, you need to change the way you think about the game. Stop focusing so intently on the item. The item is just a tool that gets you faster kills elsewhere. And so, for me, the way that I deal with this is I'm not grinding for a Bofa. I'm perfecting Gauntlet. And I know I haven't perfected Gauntlet yet. And until I perfect a Gauntlet, maybe once I feel like I've actually perfected Gauntlet on my second or third iron, I'll start to feel this way more towards Gauntlet. Maybe whenever I go 1200, whatever, 1,000 gauntlets without it. But I'm going to be honest, if I go that many gauntlets without it, I'll just get a Scorch. Like, it's not really all that big of a deal. Like, if I go, like, RuneScape, there's not a single item in this game that you can go dry and not still be able to play your account perfectly fine to end. There's items that make it easier, for sure, but none that you need.
That always sucks, but it sucks going super dry everywhere. Like, you can't change that about the game, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also true. You can't really change that it sucks to go dry. Whether you're going dry... Actually, you know what? I can say a time that I have felt this way, and it was with Barrows. I hate Barrows, because if you go dry at Barrows, it's like... It's not fun content. You're not learning the game. You're not learning anything. There's not really anything you can do to protect Barrows, right? There's no depth to it. And the items are very, very common, so whenever you do go dry, it feels like super shit. Like, Barrows without an item, never mind, I don't know if I can get in trouble for saying that. But whenever I go dry at Barrows, am I complaining about how Barrows to have more efficient ways to be done, or I need to have faster Barrows, I need to have better early game magic items? That's not what I think. What I think is, why don't I just go do moons and get my Arams instead? Like, holy shit, man. Like, there's so many other things I can do. Why am I staying here where I don't need? And maybe that's why it gets to...
I feel like one of the...
It's like, Kirill's Top is the only real Barrows piece of say is necessary. That's, I guess, Darok's Great Axe for Hydra CAs.
I was thinking about this earlier. One of the big things is being able to, like, corrupt the Bofa, so you never have to use ammo, and it's not, like, an insane amount of shards either, so...
No, but
maybe if they...
It's not an insane amount of shards, but maybe not now with the new shard changes, but at least before. It cost enough that you did have to go back to CG.
Took that away and made you recharge it all the time, so you had like a cost to use it.
I mean, I'm not against that, but now we're moving into a territory. It's like, well, we're wanting to make the Bofa easier to get, and so we're gonna force people into more gauntlets so that they can more gauntlet after they get. I don't think we should do that just because. Context of the conversation, people are mad about CG. Let's not make them do more CG.
I feel like they could reduce it quite a bit, and maybe it wouldn't like lose too much of its like value, whatever, but being able to
it would more so make the Bofa an incredibly fucking annoying item for mains to constantly buy enhanced seeds for shards, and irons probably wouldn't really care all that much because they would just do like ask at the Slayer cave mains. they wouldn't care about that. Really, all this is doing is adding an extra layer of upkeep on something that just makes it more annoying for the main people who will be using that item long, and it doesn't really affect like the main. Gives a fuck about buying it in a hand.
Dropped it and have unlimited ammo. Crystal armor hardly uses any charges. I feel like
that is true.
I think I've recharged mine like twice, but
bro, I've recharged my crystal armor to charges like.
Being able to get that corrupted Bofa is like so huge. I mean, they've really filled the game out from when I first got.
And also, like the amount of shards you put into your Bofa to corrupt it is 1,000. I think it's either 10 or 100 charges per shard. I don't remember. It's been so long since I put shards. Like, let's say it's 10. If it's 10, a corrupted Bofa is 20,000 shots. That's so many. You would have to recharge it after a decent.
To Song of the Elves, like there's so much more in between, and with like elemental weaknesses, you can really do a lot without the Bofa now. So
exactly, you can do so much without the Bofa. In fact, one might say you can get every mega rare without it.
It's true.
I feel like it's more of like a community-wide consciousness of like hate CG.
Maybe that's why it makes me so mad that there's like so many people like want to change the Bofa drop rate, because it's like they all want to change it, and the main argument given is that it feels bad to go dry, and the Bofa is such a necessary item. But only one of those things is true. It does feel bad to go bad, but the Bofa is not a necessary item.
And that's it. But yeah. I love CG, and even now there's so much in between that you can go to.
Yeah.
You don't have to lock yourself down as much as you used to, or people used to feel like it. So there's a lot of game out there.
Yeah, there is a lot of game. There's a lot of side content that has been added nowadays, and I feel like people just really undervalue. Maybe it's like efficiency brained, right? Because RuneScape is a game that forces you to constantly be about efficiency, or you feel like you're wasting. No. Eventually, if you play RuneScape long enough, you will start tick minute, that kind of stuff. So maybe it's.
I feel like we all kind of.
Let me go back.
But yeah. I love CG, and even now there's so much in between that you can go to. You don't have to lock yourself down as much as you used to, or people used to feel like it. So there's a lot of game out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what I was gonna say.
I feel like we all kind of intuitively
just chalk it up to schizo ranting or something.
We know what drop rates feel very respectful of your time, and the grinds that don't. They just start.
Well, in RuneScape, this is how I go about what respects my time and what doesn't respect my time. Do I enjoy doing it? Then it respects my time. Do I not enjoy doing it? Then it doesn't respect my time. So this is kind of, like, I think that whenever I was grinding the Bofa, I felt like it respected my time, because whenever I got the Bofa, I was so much stronger than before I entered Gauntlet that I was fine with it. Even if I went 800 gauntlets, I'd be fine with that. If I went, like, even now, I just go and do a gauntlet for, like, if I was still locked into doing that content, fine. Like, I had, the entire time I was in Gauntlet, it was no.
Are completely out of control. Like, we all know Fasani's Nightmare. It's just out of control. It's been.
But it's out of control because the drops are not good enough to match the difficulty of Fasani. That is the huge difference. And the walk there is huge. Like, Fasani is such an extreme outlier whenever it comes to grinds in RuneScape that using it as an example towards kind of dishonest. It doesn't take you 5 minutes to get to Gauntlet after you kill Hunlet. It doesn't take you, like, 16 years to learn Gauntlet, and then whenever you finally farm out Gauntlet, you get rewarded with a crush set you don't use anywhere except for a Raxor. You don't get rewarded with staff that's used exclusively in PvP except for one. You know what I mean? Like, there's all sorts of things about, there's so many problems with Fasani, and none of, like, if Fasani existed as a boss with, let me rephrase this. If you took Fasani's drop table and you put it onto a Slayer boss, people would kill the boss because it'd be a Slayer boss. It would match the difficulty. If you took Fasani and you put Doom's drop table on it, people would kill Fasani because now the drops actually match the difficulty of the content. That is the difference with Fasani and Gauntlet. Gauntlet actually drops something more.
Out of control since the inception of it. They've tried to help it. It's still terrible. Nobody wants to do that content really, unless you're
put it both on the drop table and watch people do the content.
End game, and you're just trying to get clogs at that point. So we intuitively know what needs work, and I really do feel like a summer sweep up that they're planning. It's like, why don't we just as a community kind of just look at we have a plethora of content these days, just so much.
Yeah, exactly. So why do we focus so much on a piece of content that just makes people upset because they force themselves to do it? Why don't we fix the fact that Top Uniques are dog shit? Why don't we fix the fact that Chambers has 3 mega rares? Why don't we fix the fact that, like, you go to... Oh, no, those are... Drops go. I think they do. I do think that, like, Doom drops 2 stuff. So I'm too bad to do. I do think... For higher delves. You shouldn't be able to get, like, the cloth on delve 3.
And I think of something like Royal Titans. It perfectly matched the amount of hours for the difficulty and the level. It just felt so fair. They did a great job of not letting you just linger there.
The steaks, the ice cream.
Forever. And I feel like CG is one of those places.
But to expand a little bit on that, like, Royal Titans and Perilous Moons took me about the same amount of time to green log, and I'd say yeah, it was pretty fair about the respect of my time and everything, but the reason they felt fair were because I'm going to use those items. I'm going to be using a Bofa. I'm going to be using Inquisitor. Fucking never.
Where people just linger forever, and they're just like, move on. Like,
they linger forever because the drops are going good forever. I'm fine spending 2 months in CG whenever I've had my Bofa as my best range weapon. Right? I wouldn't be fine going to Royal Titans spending a month because I'm not going to use Deadeye for 6 months on any account because I'm Chambers getting augury. You know what I mean? This is why they respect your time. Bofa is an item you will use for a very long time, so it's fine if it takes a decent. Deadeye will not last you a very long time unless you've never done Chambers before. You have to learn it.
There's so much content to enjoy, and there are literally people that will spend over a year of their real life at one piece of content. And it's like,
and that is a them problem. That is not the game's problem.
Why can't we just understand this is a video game at the end of the day and just...
Exactly. So people need to understand to have self-control, and whenever they're ruining life or having, like, getting emotional, really, really distraught over not getting an item, they need to just take a break. They need to go get a different item. They need to move on to more content. Like, as you said, this game has so much content. So why do we need to change Bofa? Because uneducated about the game to be able to experience the rest of the game. We shouldn't. We just about the game better. We need to teach them these items exist, and we need to let the DPS difference that big of it.
That let people like just move on with content and have fun and just do the next thing. And I just feel like it.
And we do let them do that. But we don't do that by making everything get.
Again, it's all an hours game. It's like we have to see how many hours.
And that's really telling. This is an hours game. Hours. This is not a game where you're supposed to log in and just get something. You're not supposed to log in, like in Fortnite, drop, and get a crown victory if you play enough nights. That's not supposed to happen. Or play enough games that night. RuneScape is a game where you're supposed to log in, have like months upon months upon months of work for one thing.
I do feel like there's this vague notion of how many hours. I really don't think even 90% of the community truly understand. I'm going to bring up Chambers again, for example, truly understand what the rate of like getting a Tebow is. Like how.
Yeah, but the reason a Tebow is so hard to get is because there's mega rares. If you look at the overall drop rate, Scythe, Twisted Bow, and a Shadow's a little the M. Let's just do Scythe and Tebow. If you look at the overall chance of every single purple you get being a Scythe and every single purple you get being a Tebow, the Tebow's going to be like 3x that. if you make the T-bow proportionally closer to the just 1 mega rare drop rate, this all goes away. It's so much better. And another thing too is like chambers typically takes a little bit longer. Like Bobby could do half decent. But the issue with chambers is how many items are in the thing, right? That's the problem with chambers. It's not that people don't like chambers, because even if T-bow is the same exact drop rate it is right now, the other 2 mega rares got completely slashed from the drop table, people would still do chambers all day, every day, because people like farming for the, maybe not whenever the 1,000 rates in, but people enjoy the content. People enjoy doing this grind. People do feel Gauntlet respects their time. People do feel like Chambers respects their time. If they didn't, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't feel like they have to do the content if they didn't feel like the item was so good that it respected them. That makes sense.
How many hours you're really putting in, especially if you're like sitting out at the bank and like doing some scouting and stuff. You're just like, you're wasting so much time, and this is going to take.
Scouting doesn't exist in Chambers anymore. Learn the Vs, go full say up, just do fake CM. So much better. It really, really is.
You so long. It's the people I see at Mass Next as well that are like banking on getting an item. I'm like, good luck, man. Like you are just playing the lottery right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, if like it's a very similar argument for those people to be like, oh, I'm doing Next all this time. I'm doing Mass Next. I'm not getting anything. I need better drop rates. They need to make it easier to get Torva. But the problem isn't the content. The problem is them. Their expectations were not effectively tampered. Or tampered's not the right word. Tempered. And because of that, they thought they were going to get item. That's just not going to happen. And they just needed to realize that, like, yeah, it's going to take a long time to get the good stuff. That's how it goes. Don't want that, then have goblins dropping whips and stuff.
I feel like you're just ignorantly blissed out. Just like, I'm going to do Next and I'm going to mass it and the 50 people in here and just pray I get a drop. And they're just, I'm
going to do Chambers and I'm never going to scale it. And I'm going to do 5,000 of them. And I'm going to be upset when I don't.
You understand the numbers behind what grind you're doing. This is absurd. Like, this is such a waste of time.
No one talked about the CG drop rate being bad when you were going there just for a Blade of Saeldor.
Exactly.
Because it wasn't a piece of content you needed to do. It was completely optional. And maybe we're moving in that direction anyways, naturally. But something that was, I went for the Blade of Saeldor because at the time I was more of a noob player. And
I do think the Blade of Saeldor is worth farming. It's just the fact that you have to get the Bofa and you have to get the Blade that makes the Blade. Which is why I don't know if I mentioned it at the very start. I think what should happen, there's like you get your enhanced crystal weapon seed. I mentioned you get maybe don't get pity on the first one, but you get pity on a second one. And the reason why is because if it's untradeable, it doesn't really affect the economy. Only people it really applies to is Iron Man, because mains are not going to be doing 800 CG to get a free Bofa or free Blade of Saeldor. That's not going to happen. And you do this many CGs on an Iron Man, or even a main, and you get this like enhanced corrupt seed, and you can't corrupt it. Oh, I know I said it's corrupt. Can't trade it. You can make it a Bofa or a Blade whenever you do it. Whenever you make one of those, it's permanently locked in. It can never be reverted. It can never be corrupted. I already said that. You have to put shards into it constantly. So you will have, and it'll be 2 charges per shard. The reason for this is not supposed to be a replacement for the Bofa. It is not supposed to be a replacement for the Blade. It is supposed to be a very unfun, clunky, bad to use item, but it's just as strong as the real version, and it holds you over until you get your Noxious Halberd, get your other seed, and it doesn't affect the economy. The requisite is you have to have another enhancement to get the second one.
Equivalent item was a rapier, and it's like, well, I can't do top. So I went and got a Blade in Saeldor myself. But when they released the Bofa, something that completely tripped me out was like, okay, so Blade of Saeldor is 1 in 400. Now Enhanced Weapon Seed is 1 in 400. If I want both items, now I'm doing 800 CGs instead of 400.
Yeah, which is why I think they should add the untradeable second version, because again, this is an Iron Man problem. The thing is, these players and myself have this problem where we're constantly looking like an Iron Man. Does this problem exist if you're playing the game the way it's intended, where you get the trade? No, not a problem at all. So this is like a bunch of Iron Man players trying, wanting to get something changed, because, and like, essentially makes it worse for mains. Like, if you're a main who makes money at Gauntlet, you do not want this to happen, ever. This, like, if you make Gauntlet as your main moneymaker as a main, this is the worst case scenario. This is a change that makes the game overall worse for the average player, because it makes Iron Man players happier. And as in somebody who only plays Iron Man, you don't want to do that. You do not want to cater your game to the niche audience of incredibly, like, dedicated players. You want to adhere, you want to make changes for those dedicated players, but you do not want to be making changes specifically only for them. They need to be in your mind, average player that benefit the average player and the veterans. Stuff like dry protection sounds like it helps, but it doesn't, because players who quit over a Bofa are the same players who will quit over a T-Bow. They're the same players who will quit over the Shadow. Same players that will quit over the Ayak. They're the same players that will quit over this. Making these stepping stone gears, which I'm not even really convinced Bofa is a stepping stone. Like, there's so much gear below it that's also really, like, you could all content with fine.
Right, and they didn't adjust for that at all. And because the Bofa was so hyped, no one thought about it. I tore down my Blade of Seldor because I'm like, I'm not going to do.
I would have done the same thing.
400 more of these to get a second weapon, so I just got rid of my blade.
Yeah, and also, the weapon you had before the Bofa, let's say back then, it wasn't the Atlatl. It was probably either a rune crossbow or a blowpipe. Now, a blowpipe, DPS is better than Bofa. Nobody can dispute that. You're on like a super high defense. But your average like raid, rune crossbow was the next like downgrade from the. And so, how much percentage DPS is a rune crossbow versus a Bofa? It's massive. How much DPS increase is a tent whip versus a Seldor? Not nearly as massive. So another thing too with this is that the Bofa was such a huge upgrade at the time, and Seldor was not really that huge of an upgrade for melee at that time. And so, in my opinion, the problem here wasn't really that Bofa and Blade of Seldor were coming from CG. It was the fact that melee didn't have nearly upgrades now. And this is why this problem also doesn't exist now. You can just use the Noxious Halberd. Noxious Halberd is very comparable to Blade of Seldor. If I remember correctly, I haven't looked at it. I got the Nox Alley and then I did Seldor anyway. I mean, if I get it, I'll use it.
I got it like 70 KC later. I got lucky, but it could have added an extra huge. 400 or so KC on the table.
But did you have to go and get that Blade of Seldor? Could you have just...
That time, that should have probably been the time when they've been like, hey, the grind is longer now. Let's reduce the drop rate. And that was a bit of a...
I do agree. If they were going to change it, that is the time they should have changed it. Because you were adding a second item to the drop table. And also, like, Blade of Seldor, I might be wrong because the item, nobody really used... Like, Crystal Armor doesn't buff your Seldor, right? As far as I know. So you can... So it's the Bofa and the Crystal that you're doing CG. Everybody knows it. So I think the Seldor, the solution to this isn't to make it the enhance easier. It should just to remove the Seldor. Just put it somewhere else. Make it a really rare drop inside the Slayer dungeon or something. That way people can get it early on their iron. Ever, you know? Get a strong slash weapon. Like, the Seldor just doesn't belong in CG because it's kind of like Fasani, where the Blade of Seldor isn't good enough to come from a piece of, like, Gauntlet. Like, sure, maybe stat-wise it does, but it's competing with the Noxious Halberd. How is a Raxor versus Gauntlet for an enhanced? It's not even the same ballpark.
Missed opportunity, but for the fundamentalists out there who are like, we can't change drop rates, I just look to that as like an example of like, well, it's objective. If you're going for both items, it's objectively double the length that it is now than it was.
Yeah, and the solution is not to increase the drop rate, as I said before. It's to actually just remove the Seldor from that drop table and put it somewhere else.
Before.
Just like what I think they should do with Inquisitor. You should just take Inquisitor off of Fasani's drop table and give it actual good. Give it something actually worth. The Nightmare Stabs are worth farming. The Orcs are farming. Have use. They're not farming an Iron Man, but so it's just there's no reason for Inquisitor to come from Nightmare. It's way too difficult, and Inquisitor is not.
So that's a counterpoint to the more fundamentalist point of view.
We could also just add a different item that sort of fills a similar gap, whether it's, some sort of ballista thing or a crossbow, something that fills that gap so it's not just.
Yeah, I do agree with this, and this is like the argument I was making earlier that this has already happened. We already have a Scorching Bow. It's not as good as a Bofa, but it's very close. You can go Scorching Bow and Blowpipe, spam chambers until you get a Dragon Hunter crossbow or T-bow. Get Dragon Hunter crossbow, now you're doing Blowpipe, Dragon Hunter crossbow. Do that until T-bow, and you're perfectly fine. In fact, most people drop their Bofa whenever they get the Dragon Hunter crossbow anyway.
CG. If at least you could bounce back and forth from two content, just trying to get one of them would feel better.
But you could do that already. People just refuse to do it, and that's their fault.
We are getting more of that. I mean, I think Moons, obviously with the Atlatl and
Atlatl's
still
great.
is the Blowpipe.
Blowpipe is still like amazing.
I think Bofa just has some really nice places where it's like, man, if you have a Bofa, you're just kicking ass. I know like Bandos for one, like people literally will go to get a Bofa just to like, go do Bandos and do.
I did that. I don't regret a single thing. My original plan actually was I was going to get a Bofa, and then I was going to go to Toa, and then I was going to get a Fang, then I was going to do. But then I learned how to do 7-0, and I just did Bandos, and I got 7 pairs of boots, and still no chest plate.
The little like red X method and stuff, and that's like a really nice spot for that. But
so now I'm farming oath plate instead of asking for better drop rates.
You're right. I mean, they could just introduce another boss just for fun that has a crossbow that's 4-tick, that's highly accurate, and just some
that's
other
the way
place
to
you can
do
go.
it.
It's maybe not as rewarding loot wise too.
And if they do add another crossbow, I also think they need to make it a little easier. Ammunition bolts specifically. Holy fucking no! It's so annoying farming dragon bolts. I don't use my Dragon Hunter crossbow as much because I farm dragon.
Because you could still choose to do CG or whatnot. So
yeah, which is how it is right now. You can choose the CG. You can choose to go to CG and get your Bofa and spend a couple months of your life doing that, or you can choose to go to Volgothic Sleeps.
Again, there's just so much variety in the game, and I think just going back to my earlier point, just like toning back these insane drop rates. I don't think CG's is an insane drop rate, but I do just think a slight increase to the drop rate to 1 in 300 just makes perfect sense. And these,
you said a slight drop rate. That's 25%. Do 25% more on anything and just say it's a slight increase. 25% is huge.
These days, like Travag was saying, like there is literally none of your gear is getting better at CG. You're naked in there.
I just wanted to kind of give Travag a shout out because I thought that was a great way to.
I don't know. It was so funny. Look at his face. He's like, "What the fuck?"
Kind of give Travag a shout out because I thought that was a great way to describe that we shouldn't be making like the big grinds begin at the progressional content. You should.
Bofa's not progressional content, though. It's just not. It is one step before the best in the game. No world is progressional content one step below best.
You should save that for the end game content.
Like Bofa.
Like, get the stepping stones to reach the end game, and then let that be the grind. Like, let that be the aspirational content, and like where you really sink your time into, not like.
So, if Bofa isn't the end game content, is Virtus not in game? So should like Desert Treasure 2 or common drop rates? I don't mean this like a gotcha, it's a genuine question. Because if Bofa is, in my opinion, lower tier than Virtus on like the progression scale, like you will have a Bofa before you will have Virtus. Objective. Every account will have a Bofa before Virtus unless you're like buying it off the. There's not a single iron that's farming DT2 before unless you're complete.
The gate key to get into that area.
In my opinion, the key is far below the floor of Bofa. the gate key is, remember, how did we farm chambers? Not me, I wasn't part of this. Whenever it came out, did we have Bofas? Did we need Bofas to get into chambers back then? Well, Bofas didn't exist. Dragon Hunter Lances didn't exist. We used Rune Cross. They, Stolen Valor here coming from, they used Rune Crossbows and Blowpipes. If they could farm out their Twisted Bows back then without Masori, without Shadows, without Scythes, without a Vernix, a Rune Crossbow, and a Blowpipe, we can too, right? Bofa, this is like a RuneScape's version of a first world problem where it's like my Bofa is more difficult to get. Meanwhile, the forefathers before us were using crossbows and adamant bolts.
Yeah. So, also that, and they should make ballistas good.
Yeah.
Biggest truth that's been said in this entire podcast. It is so stupid that, like, you do your Zenite grind, right? You get these ballistas, and actually you don't get your ballistas because they don't drop 17 tails, and then like the item is completely fucking useless outside of a rack. Hell?
We should make it time for ballistas to become meta. Let's get the gem tip javelins. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's time.
I can get behind that.
Great having you on the panel, Nario. Thanks for spreading my agenda a little bit.
Yep. There you go. Yep. Getting paid off. Yep.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. Sae Bae, I guess he's been talking about using. But yeah, no, so that is the end of the Bofa discussion. I guess their Bofa discussion, and I just decided to react to it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Bofa needs to be made easier to get? I'm instinctively looking at my monitor over there, which is... But what do you guys think? Bofa should be... But let me know. I personally, my thoughts pretty well, but I think it should say just how it is. Maybe a more difficult version of Hunlift.